Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Just Energy Radio. Happy New Year to all of you. And I have an exciting announcement. Today is the 9th anniversary, or the 9th year, beginning of the 9th year of airtime of this show. And I am just so excited that we're still here bringing you great programming in all kinds of alternative areas, including UFOs, ancient mysteries, psychic phenomena, and the paranormal. As always, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about the products and services I offer. Now, think about it. It's the beginning of the new year. It's time to get your life in order. So call me or send me an email. We can set up a time for a private consultation, and I can help guide you into the perfect place for this upcoming year. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading their free 50-page guide. We're going to have a great show tonight. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking with a good friend and a wonderful astrologer, Michele Avanti. And in the second hour, we're going to be speaking with Nostradamus expert and proclaimed prophet, John Hogue, about what's going on in this upcoming year. And I always feel like it's important to give everyone a heads up as to what the future is going to hold in the year ahead. And so we have made it a tradition on the show to provide that kind of insight. Let me tell you a little bit about Michele Avanti, and we will bring her on the air. Michele Avanti has lectured and given more than 15,000 live astrology consultations on radio, television, at seminars and workshops around America. Her columns have appeared in newspapers and magazines since 1985. She is past president of the Las Vegas chapter of NCGR, an International Society of Geocosmic Researchers. She is co-founder of the Astrology Club of Reno. Currently, she is president of Northern California Publishers and Authors. Her articles and monthly astrology columns can be read in Las Vegas community online and in numerous places around the web. Her webpage is Astrology and More, so please welcome Michele Avanti. Hi, Michele. How are you?
I am awesome. It's 2015. Hot dog.
I know, but I have to tell you, 2014 for me, and I don't know if it's just a me thing, was really kind of not that bad of a year. Better than several ones before that. And I'm really kind of looking forward to 2015.
I'm with you on that. You know, last year was a pretty darn good year for me too. I think changes occurred actually all over the country, all over the world. And the changes, even though there were a lot of scary things, there are also a lot of really good things. So this year is going to be even more awesome. And
more awesome in a good way, or more awesome in a hang on to your seat because it's a coming?
Yeah, well, I'd say that the first two, the way I do astrology when I do mundane, which is the astrology of nations and countries and such. When I do that, I work with what we call the ingress charts. So I work off the cardinal axis, which are the points of power in the zodiac. As we look at it from our point of view as humans, for the most part, we look at it in terms of the equinoxes and the solstices. So every time, like we had the winter solstice, December the 21st, that was a doorway to give us an understanding of what would be coming up for the next 3 months. And then, of course, we'll come to the spring equinox. And that's the way I do astrology for the mundane. And it's been done that way by the ancients for millennia. So at any rate, when we look at that, the first two segments, which would be the ingress we're in now and the one coming up, the Aries ingress, there are some pretty I want to say it's the end of a time frame that has been really kind of scary ride, transformative ride. And then we move into a time frame that's going to be a whole lot, a little bit better. I'll put it that way. It'll be more creative and more open and more freeing. So
what is going on in the heavens right now that is creating the turbulence, I guess would be the question.
Well, we've been experiencing a dance between Pluto and Uranus since 2008. We've witnessed all kinds of things as a result of it. Pluto is the planet of transformation. Pluto is a planet that we symbolize. The symbol for Pluto is the Reaper. The number 13 is Pluto. Pluto, when it comes into your life in an active way, it literally forces you to let go of something. And if you won't just let go because Pluto's arrived, then it will rip it out of your hands, destroy it completely, bring it down to the ground, burn it up, and then it pushes you gently forward into a new beginning. That's Pluto.
Is that before or after it knocks you into the street and steps on you?
Well, sometimes it seems to do that, yes. But it's been in what we call a hard aspect to Uranus. And Uranus is a planet of sudden, unexpected events. It's like an electricity that just suddenly appears and runs through you. It's like getting electrocuted, actually. So you put these two planets in an interfering combination, and what you have is sudden events that literally blow things apart. They destroy or disconnect or cause to explode something, whatever it's facing. And so at this point in our world, they are again coming together in that square. They're squaring even now. And as they do that, it's like having a loaded gun. It takes another planet to come into action with them. And when an inner planet like Mercury, especially like Mars, okay, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mercury, also the sun, the luminaries can be the sun and can be the moon. But mostly the one that we watch out for is Saturn and Mars. If they come into contact in a way that activates that transit, we are going to have a real problem. And right now, Jupiter actually is the one who is in an active connection with them. So Jupiter is making a trine to one and a quincunx, or a difficult, stressful combination to the other. And
isn't Jupiter usually kind of kind and benevolent?
Yes. We think of Jupiter as, when you think of Jupiter, you can think of Santa Claus. It's the largest planet in our solar system. And when you think of Santa, you usually think of a big jolly guy. So I like to call it Santa. But it also makes things larger. So when you activate a hard aspect of outer planets that are difficult planets, and you activate it with Jupiter, Jupiter actually says, well, I'm giving you a release valve from this experience. You're going to have the experience, but I will make it so big you will not miss it, and you will not miss the way to get past it or to get out of it or to come into an enlightenment regarding it. So that's the gift that Jupiter brings to a hard aspect. That hard aspect of Uranus and Pluto can be an explosive experience. We during this period, it could bring a major earthquake. It could bring a major eruption of a volcano. When I was looking, I didn't really see it in the United States, but I did. Europe does have some tones there. And when you look at what's coming up on March the 20th is the next ingress, that doorway of power that I spoke of. On that day, we also have a total solar eclipse. And the ancients always said, watch out for the eclipses because they will be periods of time where there is major activity that is not going to be fun for humanity. So you throw that solar eclipse in, and then you look to see where is that eclipse going to land, because where you can see the eclipse from is where it will have the greatest effect. And when I looked at that in conjunction with what's going on between Pluto and Uranus, Europe is where it lands. It's across Europe, it's northern Africa, and it's the Middle East, with the exception of Saudi Arabia. So,
how did they manage to get out of it?
I don't understand how they did that, but it's quite interesting. I thought. I mean, they're in the Middle East. You'd think they'd be part of it, but they're not. And when you look at that area, of course, the first thing that comes to mind for me was Mount Vesuvius. Because it's been active. So I went and looked at Italy to see how the ingress works in Italy. And it does definitely have activity that could bring some kind of an explosive event. So I'm not saying Mount Vesuvius is going to erupt on March the 20th or on April the 4th or any time specifically in this next ingress, but it is possible. And if I were traveling to Italy, this is an area I would probably avoid during that part of the year.
But you could be memorialized for eternity.
Well, I suppose. But, when I'm not here to enjoy that memorialization, I'm not sure that it's really anything I want to put out there to manifest.
When you were talking a little bit earlier about the, and I'm going to say sudden transformation that you get with the aspects of Pluto and Uranus, and then throw in Jupiter, could it even be that something gets presented that's so big and so cool that you're able to just walk away from the other stuff?
You know what? Absolutely, that is possible. When you look at this combination, okay, let's take a look for a second at Uranus and what does Uranus have to say to us? Uranus is a planet of inventions. When I said electricity, you think of it like an antenna. If you've seen the symbol for Uranus, it's a little circle with an antenna coming out of its head. And it's in the sign of Aries as it's transiting at this time. Aries is breakthroughs. Aries is new beginnings. So you take these two things, this combination, you say, okay, if we have that in a square to Pluto, and Pluto, of course, is in Capricorn, which is the sign of structures, it's the sign of governments, and you put that square, you have revolution of some kind. But it can be a revolution that's an inventive revolution. It can be a revolution that's a breakthrough of all kinds of structures to create something that is wider, something more expansive, something that we have no idea what it would be. And then when we look at the release valve to Jupiter, Jupiter is in Leo, and Leo says leadership, it says child, it says investments, it says wonder, it says gold, it says a lot of things, but it's always creative. Leo's always creative. So it can be a doorway that comes through some creative channel that our children could be a creative, spiritual child channel.
Or just fun people that are weird.
Well, I fall into that category.
All the good people do. All the good people do.
Yes, as do you. Yes. Well, that is really what Uranus is. Uranus is weird. It's everything that's outside of the box. And the only way that we ever break structure is to step outside of the box.
And that has really been my mantra for the last couple of years, has been about what is going on, what is the box we live in, and what do we need to do to get out of it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think the big key here is the gift that Jupiter gives us, and Jupiter brings a wider viewpoint. What I always tell my clients, what you have to learn to do whenever you get stuck, whether you're stuck because you're angry, you're sick, someone around you seems to be pulling you down in one fashion or another, you have to take and ascend your attitude, move your attitude to a higher space, view the world from your higher self, from the etheric level, and then it just does not look anywhere near like the terrible stuff that it looks like when you're sitting here in the lower worlds and just looking from a physical viewpoint.
And it also sounds like you're saying from kind of a personal note, I mean, we're talking a little more globally, but from an individual's personal experience, that having the attitude of when you're facing the changes and transitions, have it internally be okay, because there is this blessing that's going to be tied to it of moving through the energy and getting to the other side.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. Anytime we have Jupiter involved, as we do at this point in time, it's basically offering us that doorway, saying all you need to do is take the bigger viewpoint. And when you do, you'll learn the lesson. There's always a lesson connected to everything. I always tell people, if you look in the ashes that are left behind when Pluto leaves, there are gemstones hidden in there. Take the time to go through them. Don't just throw them out.
Well, I mean, unless you're interred at Mount Vesuvius, and then it'll be 2,000 years before they find your body, and make a little plaster corpse out of it. And then you'll be memorialized with your jewels. Poof, how good is that?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's
I'm sorry, you had to bring up Mount Vesuvius. I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, it's also possible Mount Vesuvius will not do that. We have so many people on the planet now who understand that by allowing ourselves to be used by the planet Earth to run the energy through our bodies, because we are all crown chakras for the planet. We have so many people now who understand that when they feel the call of Mother Earth, they help her to release that energy through their own bodies. By doing that, she doesn't have to blow Vesuvius up. So here's hoping that we won't blow it up. We've brought a lot of new degrees of stability to our planet over the last 20 years because of the way that our consciousness has shifted. When you look at the overall picture, you might say, well, what are we doing? Crawling? Well, yeah, we do crawl. But we have shifted. And in my lifetime, I can look back and I can say, well, how many people back in the 80s had any idea what I was talking about when I talked metaphysics? Very, very few. Today, I can walk down the street and talk to just about anyone, and they have an understanding. Even though they may still have a whole lot of baggage they're carrying, they have some ability to grasp what I'm saying, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm. That is huge. So keeping things moving along, we talked about the March 20th eclipse date. Are there any other transits that are happening that we need to pay attention to in this upcoming year?
Well, I think we do have a few, but what I'm going to bring us back to where we are now, then I'm going to move us forward. So what America seems to be focusing on right now seems to be all our energy seems to be focusing in the 6th house. And that statement is a space where we are focusing on military, on healthcare, and on employment. That focus has been going around on and off for the last 8 years or so. At any rate, we're still focusing there and we're still challenged. What's going on, though, is we have the North Node and the South Node activated by Uranus and the actual axis that takes place in this ingress that started on December the 21st. What does that mean? It means that this is a period of time from now through March the 20th where we are bringing up sudden issues will come and become very obvious to us that connect us to the karmic elements of war, the karmic elements of aggression, issues that we have karmically sown as a country. and it's going to be thrown in front of us where we can't miss it. We will have to
what do you mean by that we have karmically sown? Can you give an example?
They're everywhere. The fact that we have drones killing civilians right now, the fact that we allowed torture and say it's okay, it's not really torture, we'll give it a different word and therefore it won't be torture. The fact that we have invaded how many countries in just my lifetime, in the last 40, 50 years, that we never declared it as a war. We just went in and overthrew governments and tried to create what we wanted created, and it did not take the interests of the people there into account at all. Those are karmic seeds. We've sown them all over. We've kept it somewhat balanced because the American people have always been shrouded from the total awareness of the terrible things that we do. And instead, the American people as a whole are people who have generous hearts. They are truly the Cancerian people who want to nurture the world and the children of the world. So we as a nation probably send more money anywhere and everywhere for all kinds of causes than any other nation in the world. So we try to balance it. We don't even realize we're doing that, but that's what we've been doing. And that's why America continues to sail along, because we try to balance that karma as we go forward and have been doing a relatively good job. But at this point in time, we're at a point in our states of consciousness where a lot of this stuff that's been hidden needs to be shown to us. We need to see it. We need to realize that America is not necessarily what we were told it was, which is, justice, truth, and the American way. What the American way has kind of gone by the wayside. And it's
all right,
time
so I'm going to interject something a little off. You're talking about America. But there has been, how do I want to phrase this? The interesting concepts like ancient aliens or Göbekli Tepe or disclosure or things that lie in the fringe, which seems like they're becoming less fringe and definitely more mainstream. Yes. Do you think that is going to be part of the awareness that is going to be brought to the forefront as well?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. Uranus is not, especially when you throw Jupiter in, but Uranus is not just about being here on Earth. Uranus is taking in the brotherhood of the stars. And when you throw Jupiter in with that trine that's coming up, you've got a statement that we can become enlightened by the brotherhood. And when I say the brotherhood, we're all connected. Anyone who thinks we're not and thinks that their race is better, or the fact that they're human and there are dogs are less than, they're missing the point. We're all part of creation, and creation works in a unified field. It is not independent. It has individuated consciousness that allows for expanded growth for everyone. But it works in a unified field. And that's, of course, what Uranus and Jupiter are trying to get us to understand. The brotherhood of the stars, the star people, which we are star people. The majority of the people on this planet were seeded from other tracks. At any rate, they are here to make us aware that we are part of an ecosystem that goes far beyond the borders of this solar system. We're part of an enormous ecosystem that has to do with universes. And blowing up planet Earth is definitely not part of the story that they want to see happen, because blowing up this planet is really causing all kinds of destructive debris in this ecosystem.
Well, okay. Wasn't expecting you to go there, but that sounds really good. I'm with you.
I'll go anywhere you point me, Rita. My brain has got all kinds of information. Yeah.
Well, I was having a conversation, and the reason I asked was I was having a conversation with someone about the information about ancient sites. There's what comes out of academia, which is the status quo. And then there's material that comes out of alternative sources that seem to be getting closer to the truth. It appears that way. And absolutely. I feel like it's happening in not just in that one area, but in a lot of different areas. And it's not coming from what would be considered the mainstream or academia. It's coming from regular people like you and me doing our research and putting out our truth.
Yeah, well, that's what Uranus is really about. And to have Uranus going through Aries right now is basically saying it's time to just push through. The masses need to push through. Aries is not the sign of people who have degrees. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the beginning of the zodiac. It's the foot soldiers of the zodiac. So the ordinary person, which we try to make as not extraordinary, but everyone is extraordinary. And this is the awareness that we all need to understand, because there is no one who's not connected to the divine source. And that means that we are all extraordinary as soon as we allow ourselves to realize that and stop allowing the dogma of culture and religion to tell us we are less than. It's time to let go of these things. And I think, it's a beautiful thing to look at the new Pope who's here. He certainly is an Aquarian style Pope. He's breaking every rule that was set by his predecessors, and he is coming into alignment with spirituality. And this is a great example for what we all need to do. So, that's the direction we're going. Uranus is all about it, and in Aries, it's definitely going to kick some butt.
Woohoo! I'm special. Oh wait, you're special. Oh
That's
wait,
right.
all the listeners are special too.
You wouldn't want a world where it wasn't everybody special. Everybody is special. They bring something to the table. If we don't ask them to speak, we don't know what they've brought. So open up. Everybody at the table has something that we need to get. That's why we brought them. In reality, as a metaphysician, there's a statement: no one comes into your life that you haven't already invited. And so why did we invite them? They have something to give us, and we have something to give them.
Good point. Okay, let's see. Okay, move along.
Okay,
Any other things going on? I'm just looking at the clock going, okay. What else is going on this year? Because there's some other stuff I wanted to talk about, so.
Yep. Well, let's go forward a little bit. Let's go to the Aries ingress, which is March the 20th. And here our focus does shift. It shifts out of being so totally locked into the issues of healthcare, employment, and military. It shifts a little bit where we start really starting to focus on, unfortunately, or fortunately, relationships and enemies. Those are two statements. So we're focusing in a way that is a little bit different. And what's interesting is the nodes come right into play into that seventh house. The South Node is there. Uranus is there. The Moon, the Sun, and Mars, they're all there. And they're all in Aries. So here we have a statement that during that 3-month period from March the 20th to June the 21st, this is a period where we're going to push through. We're going to be looking at what have we done in the past with the military? What have we done that has been aggressive? What have we done and what can we do that can be creative, that we can take this and use it as a breakthrough for a new military, for a different military, for a different kind of aggressive action in the world? How can we do that? And we're also saying, but we want to do it in a cooperative way in terms of family. We want to look at the children. We want to look at the women. We want to look at things a little differently. At the same time, we are in a bit of a battle with this issue of how do we stay balanced with those who are our enemies or who we perceive as our enemies. The good news is that we do have a beautiful statement coming off of Uranus to Jupiter there, as we've mentioned earlier. And that means there's a doorway through international societies to become greater leaders or to understand at a more spiritual level. And this may also, again, this could actually be pointing, for example, to the Pope. It can point to any of our big international groups as well. So The Dalai Lama could fit in here. Any leader of spirituality may be opening a doorway to help us see aggression in a different way. You know, I was listening to, I think it was the Jon Stewart show about a month ago, and he had, her name was Sarah Powers. She's the U.S. ambassador to Africa. And she's the United Nations, she's our ambassador to the United Nations, but she had been in Africa looking at the Ebola situation. And she used a very interesting word when she talked about doctors. He was saying, well, it sounds like we need more doctors. She says, we need armies of doctors. And I thought that is so aligned with this statement that's in the chart for this new ingress in April. We are looking at armies in a different way. Armies of doctors makes a lot more sense because we need to turn the issues of war to issues of healing and stop the destruction and start the empowering. That's the paradigm shift that we are working towards. And hopefully this is going to be a push in that direction.
That would be great. I mean, I would love to see things turn around and move out of the fear-based mentality that we're in into a more healing climate for everyone.
Yeah. Well, we see it by increments. You know, I don't want everybody to think, well, we're going to wake up on, you know, April the 23rd or something and it's all going to be just better, because it's not. You know, when I look at the United States chart itself and I look in terms of the progressions of the United States chart, there are things that, you know, we're in a progress right now where we have so many planets that are in retrograde. We have Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, and Saturn are all in retrograde progressed in the U.S. chart. So we are internalizing many things. We are looking inside. When are these planets going to go direct? And it's a long story. Mercury will go direct on September the 29th of 2016, which is a very interesting date because that's basically just a pinch over a month before the election. Yes, and to have Mercury, in the U.S. chart move forward says that finally someone is going to be speaking clearly, and it's going direct in 20 degrees of Aquarius. So we come back, the ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. We come back to breakthroughs, inventions, inventiveness, cooperation, issues of cooperation, all being spoken finally. So it's going to be a very exciting, that's going to be an exciting race. I'd love to talk more about it at some point. We don't know who's going to be in it yet, but just looking at Jeb Bush's chart, because I knew Jeb Bush would fit this Mercury at 20 degrees Aquarius, and he does. He's born February the 11th. He has a lot of activity with that 20 degrees of Aquarius in his chart. Hillary has some, and Elizabeth Warren has some. So there's some interesting statements going on there. That can be
well, you know, as we get closer to the election, I will totally have you back on because we've done that, twice already? And the pre-politics, pre-election survey.
Yeah, yeah, it's always fascinating. But anyway, so that's happening. But then we have to wait before we get other planets to go direct. The next planet that'll go direct will be Jupiter, and it will station direct at 15 degrees of Cancer on September the 3rd, 2025. I don't even know if I'll still be on the planet, but because it's a ways for me to go. But nonetheless, 15 degrees Cancer, 10 minutes is an activation very close. It's just turned around and is no longer facing the sun of the United States of America. Our sun is at 13 degrees of Cancer. So this Jupiter has been holding us together. In case anybody's been wondering, how do we manage to get through all these recessions and all of these crises and all of these wars? Jupiter's been holding us together. Of course, Jupiter in our natal chart is very, very strong. We can thank Benjamin Franklin, a master astrologer, for that. So, but anyway, going back to where we are now, so we have that to look forward to in terms of change coming up. When we come to the Cancer chart, which starts on June the 21st, here there's going to be some issues with health threats, and could be disease that they're trying to tell us where people are going to be catching. It could be coming through the air. It can be an air disease. It could be also hacking through the internet. It could be issues of internet insecurity, and could also come through gas of some kind or create gas of some kind. So we've got some real challenges there. And it could also be military gas because it is coming through the sixth house as well. So that's going to be it'll be all over. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of information about that at that time. 29 degrees in this is a what we call a critical degree in astrology. It basically says, if it's in your chart, it says, in this area, I must learn what the lesson is. I must before I can go to the next step. I can't delay any longer. I can't procrastinate any longer. I have to get through this. 29 degrees is significant this year for the United States of America. We start the December ingress, the Capricorn ingress started with a midheaven of 29 degrees of Pisces. That is on the fixed star Skiat, the star of drowning, the one that we saw activated when there was the terrible tsunami in Japan. And long before that as well in other drownings. But it's at the midheaven of the U.S. chart, which says that we got to get our public image together. We got to stop dreaming about who we are and start being who we dream. That's the statement there. When we look at the second chart that starts in the end of March, we have another issue of 29 degrees that is a hidden issue because it's in the solar eclipse. It's 29 degrees of Pisces. Again, the same statement that's in the first chart, it shows up in the solar eclipse. So here it's saying you have got to get your acts together. We can drown you in fire. We can drown you in water. We can drown you in tears. But you have got to make change and stop sabotaging your future by karmically doing things you should not be doing. Stop dreaming and start doing. Come to the third chart, which is the Cancer ingress. And here we go again. 29 degrees. Saturn will be at 29 degrees of Scorpio. And the moon in that chart is 29 degrees of Leo. They are in a square. That is a challenging combination. The moon always represents the people of the country and also the children and the women, and even the homes. But having it in square to Saturn, fortunately it's coming through the third house and not the fourth, is indicative that there is a challenge between the government and what the government has been doing that has been hidden from us and what we have allowed to sabotage our future, our homes, our children, and our women. So this is going to come again forward in that chart. There is a release valve to it. The part of fortune sits close, and Chiron says we can heal this. As a soul family, we can come together and heal this, but we must do it by looking into the past and releasing it. So that 29 degrees again is spoken of. But I will say this, the focus starts to splatter when we come to the Cancer ingress. And then when we come to the Libra ingress in September, late September, it splatters a little further. So money does increase. We do have a lot of statements that says money increases. There will be more money for housing. There'll be more transformation in the housing markets. We may have some issues of international purchases where people from foreign countries are buying large amounts of property. And that may come to the foreground, and we maybe find ourselves arguing about that or working through it.
Well, that would be kind of interesting. Not that they, don't own half the country already, but
well, it may be that more people will become aware of how much they actually own.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about on the international scene? How is the United States doing with relationship to other countries? Or are there anything showing up in like China's chart or in the Middle East that we should be aware of?
Well, I actually didn't run China's chart, and I'm terribly sorry I didn't do that, because had I known you'd ask that, I would have brought it.
I was just throwing out a country.
Yeah, you can't really throw out China. It's a big country. But when we take a look, if I throw this ingress chart, because I can do that pretty much mentally, throw it around to where they are. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with a whole other story. And that's always the interesting thing. There, when we throw it to the west, we're going to take the chart and turn it sideways. And what we end up with is all the things that we're focusing on in this first chart, in this first ingress, where we're focusing on healthcare and such employment and stuff. They're focusing on issues that are becoming public. They're having problems, from what I'm seeing. Their major focus and their major challenge will be issues that involve the internet, involve explosions or explosive people words publicly. So they're probably, and of course I know not much comes out of China, but from the looks of this, their young people are fighting. And they're working to buck the system. And of course, the Uranus-Pluto issue is as much their part active there as it is here, except that there it's activating through the 9th house and the 1st house. And it's about the people of the country and their need to be more internationally connected. They want to break through. They want to break through the locks that are keeping them from being able to be heard and seen. So that's going on. Monetarily, I've seen some odd statements from other astrologers saying that China is going to be poor, and I don't know where they're getting that statement. Looking at this chart, when I turn it for China, what I've got is a beautiful trine between Venus and its rulership of the 2nd house, which says money, money, money. They have no problems that I can see with money. So I don't know what the astrologer who was saying that was seeing. I have got no clue. China, as far as I can tell, is fine as far as money is concerned. If I go into the second ingress chart, there the focus becomes more issues of public. So it looks like some information is getting out in the Aries ingress. So we're going to get to hear things that are going on in China that we are not obviously privy to at this point. So information is going to be leaked. Because we've got Neptune in a sextile to Pluto, major transformation in relationships opens up as a result of media or internet media, Instagram or whatever it is, because it's indication of a communication that is pictorial. So it's more pictures that are being sent than it is actually words that are being sent. And let's see here, when we go to the third ingress, which is in late September, it begins, and then it ends in December. We've got the emphasis that we still are getting some struggle going on there, where there is militant action of the people versus the media or versus propaganda is what it looks like, because it's Neptune, it's lies. It could also be, when you think about China, this could also have to do with air quality, because Neptune is also gases in the air, and the public image of gases in the air they may also be struggling with. So that seems to be continuing when we look at this chart. Again, looking monetarily to see if there's any issue, when I know another astrologer has claimed there is. I am not seeing it. So,
are there any countries that have come up in your mind that we need to pay attention to in this upcoming year?
America seems to be more closed into itself from everything that I'm looking at. So I don't really see any other countries like saying, well, we're going to cause an offensive. It's more that the United States seems to be the one who is taking action in an aggressive manner. It's not countries taking it against us. I did not see that.
Okay. So what's your thought? Okay, and I'm just going to kind of throw in a long shot here. What's your thought about what's going on with the gas prices right now?
I knew you had asked me something about, and I kept thinking it was water. I don't know why. I almost called you to say, what did you want to know about water? But it's not water.
The water thing is, in California, there were cities that had no water.
Ah, yes. Oh, we could have looked at California. But California, what they're doing with the almonds is unbelievable.
California had a rough year this past year.
Yeah. Well, it looks like God is delivering a lot of water to them. So this might be very, very
whether they
helpful.
want it or not.
Yeah, I think they do want it. I know that Lake Shasta was way, way down. And so I know they desperately need it in California. But asking about gas prices, let me think about that for a second, because I'm not sure where I would, Neptune rules all forms of gas. And when we look at Neptune in the chart we're in now is not poorly placed. It has lots of, it has good connections, and it's obviously much more free-flowing than it has been. It's not under any attack. When we look at it in the next chart, it still seems to be relatively free. There is some friction with the people of the country wanting to go more places is what the statement would be. So it may be a supply issue. It becomes more of a supply issue than it would be. They could raise the cost because of supply. Although I'm not really seeing that we can't afford it. It looks like we've still got very good connections. We've got Venus making a wonderful connection to Neptune. So there's money for gas. I don't see it as being. I don't think it's going to go back up there.
I don't know how much it is where you are, but I was at the store the other day. It was $1.99 a gallon. Well, I haven't seen it for $1.99 a gallon in years.
I wish you'd taken a picture of that. I haven't seen that yet either. But we did get it down to $2.19, so that's pretty darn good. Yeah. I mean, if you can walk away from the pump and actually fill your car for $30, you're doing terrific.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a long ways from when my cousin used to ask us when we'd go to the drive-in, she'd say, okay, who has pennies? Pennies? Seriously? What can you do with pennies today?
Tile your floor.
Oh, that's hysterical. Yeah. It's so, I'm not seeing that as anything going up. Really, money does not look terrible here. Money is improving. When I look at the chart, June the 21st, there's no question money is improving. When I look at the chart for the Libra ingress, which is September 23rd, we've got the sun in the second house, and we've got Mercury, who rules that house, sitting there. And we've got a grand trine activity going from the sun and the moon and the midheaven. So we're doing better with money, and housing seems to have a better hit as well. If people ask me, what should I invest in if I were investing? Well, there's a number of things depending on what ingress you're in as to what might be good for investments. So I don't know, if your folks are interested in that part of this or not. But when we take a look, we've got the Libra ingress coming up September 23rd, and at that point in time, we've got toys and luxury items. And this is amazing because, people haven't been buying luxury items. But here you have statements in this chart that says we'll be looking at actually buying luxury items, more toys. And the word toys, it can be for grown-ups as well as children. There is still also medical equipment. But again, the statement is medical equipment that is more luxury medical equipment. And that's an interesting statement. What is luxury medical equipment? Well, they have things like bathtubs now that you can walk into. That would be considered luxury medical equipment. So it's an interesting statements.
You're talking about that money is there or coming back online, but we have this whole Pluto thing going on. Could it be, you haven't used the word employment, and I guess that's where I'm coming. Do you think that employment is getting better? There are more jobs out there, or because of this transition that's going on, that people are finding other and alternative ways to make money, and so now they have income?
Well, I love what you've just said because that fits the whole Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter issue, which says, you'll be challenged. And we look in this ingress that we're in right now, who rules the house of employment is Jupiter. And Jupiter does say, it's in Leo, it says, let's be creative. It says, let's expand our viewpoint and be creative. So employment does expand as a result of creativity. When we look at it in terms of what kinds of things might we be involved with, technology is certainly part of it. Anytime you have Sagittarius involved, we're also looking at things that are international, imports, exports, looking at things being made far away. We have Capricorn also in this house, and it's also active. Capricorn through Mercury and Pluto and Venus in this house. So we're looking at that, and activity there with Capricorn says buildings. It says structures. It says things of quality. So how are people looking? They're saying, some of the things that we've been importing are not quality. Maybe we need to look at starting to build things with more quality right here in the United States, and we might sell them for more, but people will realize they're going to last longer. So changing the way that we look at employment is definitely connected to what's happening right now. And how do we expand employment? That's probably the way it is going to be done. Jupiter is definitely saying that. When I look at the Aries ingress, we have Neptune there. Neptune again is creativity. Neptune in Pisces. There's a lot. There's like employment in the movie industry. There's employment in gas industry. Employment in pharmaceuticals. Where would you find a job? These are areas that, in that quadrant, people are going to be looking at, and they're going to expand jobs. So, when we look at different, the ingress that follows that, we still have Neptune still in that location. So we still have activity taking place with pharmaceuticals and medical stuff and gas and oil and any kind of gases that are underground. There will be employment in those areas.
That's cool. I'm look. Oh, yeah. We got 10 whole minutes. 10 whole minutes. Yay. Let's see. Well, there's we can certainly look at a lot further than that. We could take a look at America's chart specifically, and that was one of my questions. I'm just kind of, if you saw my piece of paper, you would understand. Is there anything juicy going on in the White House, or with Obama, or any dirt that you want to share coming up?
Well, I really, if you don't ask me about dirt, I never even think to look for dirt. So,
come on, I always want dirt.
Well, I never think, this is not something I think of. But let's take a look. Let me just look here and see if I see anything that just jumps out at me. I will say this. I'm staring right now at the United States chart and the Aries ingress chart. So this is the moment that everything turns, and it's the date where we have this solar eclipse. So things can really jump out. And what's incredible on this day is that Jupiter at 13 degrees of Leo is sitting right at the midheaven of the U.S. chart. Jupiter at the midheaven says, and in Leo, it says that we can open up to all kinds of possibilities. Then we take a look and we see Uranus is making a trine to Jupiter in the sky. So it's coming right through the 6th house. So it makes things more transparent in the White House. It will make things where people see more clearly what is really going on with healthcare, with the military, with employment in this country. It really brings it to the forefront and blows it up to where you can't miss it. Saturn is also active, but it's a wide orb, so it will take probably a few. It's actually going to take more than a month, so it'll go into the next ingress before it moves forward. But we have been dealing with Saturn in Scorpio for a long time now. It's been, 2 years or a year and 3/4, whatever. At any rate, we're coming out of it. That has been a statement of us digging deep in terms of government and bringing the garbage out, taking out the garbage. removing it and suppressing government in ways where we are trying to squeeze the issues of power out of it so we can see what's really happening. So talk about dirt. We've been having plenty of it. But what's happening now is Saturn is going into Sagittarius. It just did, and then it's going to go back. So most of this year it's still in Scorpio. But nonetheless, it is going into Sag. And when it finally continues to move forward in Sag, it's going to change everything. Governments will be more open to connecting with each other. They will not be so closed off and shadowy. They've been very shadowy for a long time, but you're going to see them connect in ways that we haven't for a long time. And their concern about commerce will be probably what drives them, because Sagittarius is about commerce. It's also about spirituality, but when it comes to governments, it's such a far cry that I just can't even make that leap, no matter how hard I try. So it's going to be money. It's going to always be camaraderie for money. It's just the way of the world we live in. Let's see if I see anything else. Pluto's been in the third house of the United States on this chart. Pluto is in the third house. That's our house of communication, and it is active still in that grand square there, that square to Uranus. So that solar eclipse on March the 20th. And, of course, you can have the application of it, which is a whole week before, and it could be also another week or so after. This eclipse may even last a lot longer than that. But during that period, if there's dirt to come out, it's going to come out. It'll come out suddenly. It will be probably things about the military. It will be things about it could be about bombs or explosions or explosives or revolutions that we have caused that we were unaware of. Could be issues of torture. Do you think that the
American people will believe it, or do you think that it'll get such a spin on it that we'll just ignore it?
You know, I disagree that this one will have a spin, because Jupiter is at the midheaven in an activity that connects in such a way that releases the information transparently. Jupiter doesn't hold anything back, and in Leo, it simply cannot. This is where the person talks way more than they should. And so I think the people will see it, they'll hear it, they'll believe it. The question I think you're really asking is, will they take any action to change it? And that's an issue that it would not be answered in this particular chart. This is just getting the word out. I'll say this. During this time, we have the moon in Scorpio in the United States Progress chart, and it will be in Scorpio for a while more. So I sincerely doubt that the American people are going to take a whole lot of action. When it's in Scorpio, their needs are more about themselves and being in control of their world and being not losing money. I think you'd get the biggest reaction if you said something about taxes while the moon is in Scorpio, bigger than if you said we tortured 500 people and killed them all. Or the moon in Scorpio says, oh, yeah, okay, we could do that. But if you say we're going to raise taxes, the moon in Scorpio will say, oh, no, you're not.
But that really seems reflective of how it's been. You know, there's been so much fear jockeying going on that people are just hanging on for dear life.
Well, you're not wrong on that, and that's part of the whole issue of where we are in terms of our nation and the world too at large. But here, with so many planets in retrograde and Mars in retrograde, Mars is the energy of this nation. We're fighting with ourselves and we're hiding from ourselves, which is like we pull our energy inside and say, no, I can't afford to expend that right now. And that energy can be money, energy can be love, energy can be a lot of things. So we don't have the fellowship that we had 50 years ago.
Michele, on that note, we need to wrap it up because he just told me 30 seconds. If somebody wants to get a private consultation with you, do you work with people? You know, give out your webpage, all that good stuff. quickly.
Yeah. You can you can call me directly, 541-863-6631. You can find me on Facebook under Michele Avanti, spelled with one L, Michele, and Avanti, Avanti. You can go to astrologyandmore.com, and that'll lead you all over the place. Just write the whole thing out. It's astrologyandmore.com.
Or she could go to the webpage and click on the link to your site. Michele, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful, happy new year.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.
That's Michele Avanti, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN chat lounge, the game lounge, video lounge, or the mood lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Who were the gods of antiquity? They've been described as the forces of nature, levels of consciousness, and aspects of our psyche. Stories that depict their incredible weapons, their flying machines, and their amazing adventures are characterized as being the product of our ancestors' fanciful imaginations. But what if the tales of the gods are true? Did the writers, chroniclers, and scribes of our distant past actually document a realistic view of our origin? My latest book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, looks at our most ancient legends. Learn of the torrid romances, elaborate plots, violent scandals, and conspiracies that played out in antiquity. Find out the role the gods played in the life and culture we have today. If you want to find out the truth of who we are and where we come from, order your copy of Man-Made today. For more information, go to www.manmadethechronicles.com. That's www.manmadethechronicles.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
We only have a couple of seconds before we have to get back to the show, and I want to tell you how you can jumpstart your intuition today. Using my free 50-page introductory guide filled with simple, revolutionary, and proven techniques, you can ignite your intuition and tap into your inner wisdom, all from the comfort of your own home. The Institute of Applied Energetics is the leader in online home study instruction for those interested in becoming a certified medical intuitive, intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner. Now is the time to transform your life and take it to a completely new level. Discover who you are and how you work. Open the door to the world of intuition, health, and healing. You can jumpstart your intuition right away by going to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and downloading our free guide. Get the opportunity of a lifetime and live the life you deserve. Download your free Jumpstart Your Intuition guide today at www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and begin living a life filled with passion and purpose.
Have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all of the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the live request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. In this hour, we're going to be speaking with John Hogue about, again, what's coming up for 2015. Let me tell you a little bit about John and bring him on the air. John Hogue defines himself as a rogue scholar. He is a world-renowned authority on Nostradamus and other prophetic traditions. His work is critically acclaimed for cutting through the social, religious, and nationalistic projections of prophets and their interpretations to find the threads of insights they all share. His webpage is HogueProphecy.com. And I was supposed to write down the name of a book that I was supposed to mention at the beginning, but I didn't. But it was like a book about predictions for 2015, but I'm sure he'll be more than happy to share that with us. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, John Hogue. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Rita, I'm doing good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Your new book that just came out for 2015?
Yeah, it is. It's actually something I've not done before. I had this book on 2015 that turned into this 100,000-word monster that I'm still banging away at. That's going to be released maybe. Well, I can promise that it will be released by New Year's, Chinese New Year's. But
okay, which is in February for those people that didn't get that joke.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, I had an idea to take 10 very short essays on 10 very key defining predictions for the next year, followed up by an essay that I wrote for a group that was meeting with a certain billionaire to talk about the future in 2015 in Santa Barbara. who will remain for this point anonymous, but I thought that I should write something since I'm going to be addressing the 1%ers of the world in this little meeting. I wrote an essay called The Future of Richness. And so I end this little booklet of about 11,000 words on that. And I put it out there on the 20th of December. It has since become a #1 bestseller in Amazon for prophecy and divination genre.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's
very cool.
It's taking off. It's quick. It's an easy read. It's a very comprehensive read. And if you go to HogueProphecy.com, just beneath the two characters in the interview, which is the first article in the stream there, you'll see to the right the cover, and click on it, and you can read a little more about it. And if you like it, you can sample the free part of it. That's always there in Amazon. And if you like that, then feed the kitty.
Yeah, we like that. I mean, especially since, the holidays have just passed, and so it won't be till next year that they'll need those stocking stuffers. But if you have a birthday coming up, or Valentine's Day, or I don't know, some holiday that you'd want to buy somebody a nice gift.
Well, and not only that, it's only $2.99. So
it's a bargain.
Yeah, it's $2.99. It's an ebook, so it's also what usually happens this time of year is this is the time when people would love to hear more about what's coming next. And since I've been doing these things since 2007, doing a new book each year, this is kind of, especially for a lot of people who've been waiting for the bigger version of this that's going to expand on this quite a lot. I just actually brought it into the first draft world right now. It's now the hardest part for me for writing is drawing it out of the ethers and having all the Play-Doh on my plate, as it were. And now the fun begins, the editing and putting it and honing and doing all that. But it is a huge pile of Play-Doh.
Words. Yeah. Hey, but you know what? I have to tell you this. This is the start of our 9th year. So we aired Just Energy Radio the first it was Friday. We were Friday night. So the first Friday in 2007. And so it sounds like you did your first ebook in 2007 as well. So we're like on a similar timeline.
We're on the 7th vibration.
That's right.
Yes. 7-Eleven.
Okay, let's talk prophecy. Before we get into detailing what you see coming up for 2015, perhaps you can enlighten the audience with how you come up with your information. Do you use charts? Do you channel the information? Do extraterrestrials come and leave you little messages? Do they come through in your dreams? Or is it all of the above?
Well, I can say one thing for sure. I don't get probed by extraterrestrials. But wrong use of words. The thing that I basically do is I seek a balance between doing all the trend research, being on one hand a futurologist, look at the trends, look at the data, watch the news, watch the things that are going on around the world, try to get as many different views of news, because they all have a certain slant, of course, but in the last few years, American mainstream news has gotten so into its own slant that it's, I have to go to Russia Today to find out what's really happening in my own country, or Al Jazeera. But there also, over the years, I've come to use a lot of, on the equally dangerous world of the internet, when it comes to wild wives' tales, found certain groups and people that consistently give an alternative view to the world that's probably quite accurate. So I do all that. And then I do what is basically getting out of the way. Just before the show, we were talking a bit about opera, and I used to be an opera singer, and how a lot of people, when they pretend to be opera singers. They usually actually do what's opposite to what an opera singer is trained to do. To make that kind of big sound, they actually tighten up their throat and go lo, 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 and like that, and sound incredibly constipated. And in a way, there's a comparison to that, to how a lot of people who do prophecy try to push themselves into a state to create the trance, to see the future, using magic circles and brass tripods and whatnot, and any series of divinatory tools. But I have come through 30 years of this, of following something that goes back to my operatic roots. And that is learning how to see the future like I used to sing, and that is finding that knack of the effortless effort, where you actually, to make the big sound, as in making the insightful look into the future, you have to get out of your own way. The messenger has to get out of his or her own way, and to do that is kind of a strange paradoxical meeting of effort and relaxation. Where they are perfectly in balance, there's an opening. And in that opening, there is an effortless understanding that can then take this subjective experience into all the data that I have done, all the trend research, which is more objective. And basically, I contend, it tells me which trends and which people and which things are actually going to go somewhere in the future or not. And then I write. I
guess what you're saying is you drink a beer and you start writing.
No, I usually have a gin and tonic after.
Okay.
It's more to come down. One of my friends once said to me, he said, "I think you were born with LSD in your system, so you don't need to take it."
I'm not even going to touch that one. Not even going to touch that. So we have so finite time, so I'm just going to move us along.
All right.
For years, and we were talking about this in the last hour, but for years I felt like we've been on a tipping point for our future. Do you think that we still have time to save ourselves from our own bad devices?
Well, we're running out of time to prevent. But that doesn't mean we're going to run out of time to cure. That's why in both these books on 2015, including the booklet, the first prediction of the 10 is a little essay about how I name this year the year of last chances. And that means this 2015 is the last chance for us to use what astrologically has been given to us by these few years of Saturn transiting through Scorpio. And in layman's terms, that happens every 28, 29 years. And in those 2.5 to 3 years when it's happening, that has often been, in particular in the case of America, the time when America has an opportunity to redefine itself and recreate its dream. Now, America and the American dream has gone through these cyclical changes. Sometimes we have this debate, a national debate, and then we kind of redefine ourselves. And other times we kind of let it slide. And then what happens is that we have a whole lot of karmic Saturnian consequences that happen after that. We are in that time where we need to redefine ourselves. And unfortunately, we're running out of time in this transit. We've basically kicked the can of redefinition down the road. And so by the end of the summer, when Saturn nudges back into Scorpio through June through September, is the last chance for political reforms and other things that are mainly ruled by Scorpio Saturn, which is the economy, monetary systems. How do you bank? How do you separate the financial systems from banking systems? Rules and laws, responsibility. That's what Saturn's all about. And hold on, somebody was calling.
Really? That's what that was?
Yeah. I just had they might call again. I might have to, that'd be a friend of mine, fellow writer J.R. Rain on the road somewhere. Anyway, basically what we come down is Saturn in Scorpio rules inheritances. And so we basically have to ask what kind of future and what kind of world do we want to inherit in after the summer of this new year. And to get back to your point, have we run out of time? We are definitely running out of time to anticipate problems, to begin the reforms that we need to do with structures of our society, economy, way the human race defines itself in relationship with its own planet and its own climate. All of that is coming to a head, and we're most likely going to make some changes, some starts, and certainly I see a lot of localized work being done that's not even being reported in the news, because most of the news is seeing the world through corporate haze and not seeing the power of the little people, of the power of local governments and local movements to do the things that, for instance, in Paris, they're all going to meet the leaders of the world in Paris in November through early December in probably the worst astrological aspects for what they want to do, and that is to create at last a legally binding carbon emissions law that people will subscribe to and sign to, that will try to keep the world from rising its temperatures beyond what are 205 global warming levels in 2030. The problem is that I predict that it's too little and it's too late, and the compromises that will be made will make this baby teeth. And frankly, what we need to do is not keep the levels to the 2005 level. We need to actually curtail carbon emissions by 80%, not 20% or 25% by 2030, because we are now entering a period of where something I've been warning for years is becoming more mainstream attention, and that is what I call the great invisible supervolcano that at this moment, if you could see it, is a caldera, the width of the Arctic Circle, that is absolutely fuming our atmosphere with methane and CO2 from the melting permafrosts all around the ring of the northern polar sea. And it's also, as I predicted in this book, we're going to start seeing what's happening up in the north with the great meltdowns beginning to happen in the Antarctic, which has been relatively stable. But now it's going to show similar signs like Greenland and other areas of melt. The danger that this brings up is, I used to say that civilization was threatened, but now we're setting the stage for our own species to be endangered if the methane hydrates, which are the largest store of carbon that the Earth stores from it falling into the ocean and turning into this slurry of ice at the continental shelves. We're reaching a point where we're heating up the ocean enough that some of that may start doing what I call the carbon Kali Yuga Coca-Cola fizz, where it begins to bubble out as the old country music song used to say, and she left me like the bubbles in my beer. The methane leaves the ocean and goes into the atmosphere and creates a situation where we're not now threatened with a 6 degree Celsius increase of the climate. We are going to be threatened with a 12 degree Celsius climb in the mean temperature of the world by the end of the century, which would match what they think happened in the Permian extinction, which in 80,000 years' time killed all but 4% of all life on Earth. And so, in short, we're creating at a much faster rate that has never been seen before an extinction level event. So what I'm coming to is that this danger is our new Hitler and the Axis powers that people finally kind of wake up and pull up their sleeves and say, we've got to defeat this, or else we enter a new dark age. And this is cyclical. This happened, it's called the fourth turning, and it happens that there's a 20-year period of crisis. Last time it happened was the 1930s and 40s. We are back in that cycle now, and rather than an Adolf Hitler to fight, we have to fight stupid, which is in us. It is a new kind of fascism, the fascism of stupidity, that's based on habit, that's based on a fear to change, and this threat that is coming is going to scare us enough to, I think, fix it. And I will also say that the economic collapses that are coming, just like the previous depression, will not be fixed by the attempts to fix it back then in the 30s as even now. They will be fixed by the world's economy being geared towards stopping climate change. And that will start just like building the arsenal of democracy that America did. That got America out of the Depression. It wasn't anything that Roosevelt did. It was the war with Hitler. And this war with our stupidity and what it's doing to our planet's climate and to our future, eventually, sooner or later, in the 2020s at the latest, or even the 2030s, is going to get so bad that people are going to understand that they've got to fight it, a new kind of subtle enemy. We have met the enemy, and they are us. And the enemy is stupid.
Well, and I don't think that people will... No, I want to say it different. I think people would be willing to make changes if, one, they weren't forced on them, or two, they weren't so freaking expensive to incorporate into your life. We look at. I'm just going to use the example of light bulbs. You know, they want people to not use the incandescent light bulbs. Go to the more energy efficient, those coil kind that suck. I mean, they just suck. They don't light a room. Okay, so you buy them, but they're more expensive than the incandescent one. Then you get the LED ones, which are $10, $12, $15, $20 a piece. Now, they last longer, but they make it be so hard to do what would be good for the environment. They make plastic, my favorite, they make plastic bags that are environmentally friendly. Okay, so it's thinner plastic in the plastic bags, but then they charge you more money. Really? Really?
Well, you know, all of that is a repetition of what happened. Things always repeat themselves because, you know, a society that tries to take what I would call enlightened, birthright enlightened beings into a process of de-education that turns them into functional mediocrities, that kind of society can't... It will always do things piecemeal. It will always it did it back in the 30s when people saw Hitler coming. People saw what was coming afoot with the rise of militarism, and people saw that their tariffs and the breakup, similar to what we're doing now. Rather, we had this global society starting. Now we've had this idea to create a phony nuclear confrontation, potential Cold War nuclear confrontation with Russia, and which is the whole subject of another book of prophecies from the World War prophets that we talked about in our last show. A New Cold War was the prophecies of Nostradamus, Stormberger, and Edgar Cayce, which I published in July last year. It is, we are creating we're piecemeal, too little, too late in the way we treat the climate, like we were piecemeal, too little, too late with the economy that created a climate that created fascism and militarism that created the Second World War. And so it's not until the boom is lowered. It's not. We're going to have shocking moments like invasion of Poland moments, Pearl Harbor moments, and invasion of the Soviet Union moments that makes the whole world catch their breath. And unfortunately, that means that sooner or later, perhaps in the next 2 hurricane seasons, a Category 3 or 4 hurricane going up the Potomac might actually force the president and the Congress to evacuate Washington, D.C. Or you will have a return of a Hurricane Sandy that's a Category 5 that takes down New York City. And those are like Pearl Harbor, Hitler invading the Soviet Union kind of moments in this war that Mother Nature is waging against our stupidity to get our attention. And so those kind of shockers, it's bigger than losing 3,000 people and 2 towers falling in New York. This is where you lose New York. And that disrupts.
And Florida.
Yeah. And that disrupts. That is such a shocker that it makes the whole world has to look at it. They have to deal with it. They have to stop playing with their silly little LED light bulbs and their little issues about, do I get a plastic bag or not at the supermarket because I'm trying to save the earth? And then actually look at, carbon is the problem. We are belching it. We need to cut it at the root, and we've got 10, 20 years to do it, and we roll up our sleeves and do it, and we reach that point where the human race realizes it must make the sacrifices to survive. That we went to war to stop the spread of fascism and to keep our world as we knew it to survivable democracies. We didn't want to go into the war, we did it. And there was a lot of sacrifice that went with that. When the point critical mass collective understanding arises where people understand that we may not have a future on this planet if we don't change, then the political will will be there for changes to be made. What I'm concerned about, though, is that by kicking the can down the road, by keeping the fiat economy going rather than having a new Bretton Woods arrangement where world leaders have to do what they did at the end of World War II and redefine what economic rules and structures are, we are in that point now where the world is needing a new system, a new currency system, economic system that is beyond the kind of monopoly funny money system that we've been on since 1971 when we started floating currencies. That's coming to a head. The good news
but in what you're suggesting, what seems like it would be a good solution, quote unquote, would be to have a universal banking system, a universal currency, and that's a little scary.
Well, here's the thing. There will be a universal international currency, and it's going to be born out of cryptocurrencies. We're going to see – it's still Wild West in that realm, but I predict, for the record, that what we're seeing there's going to be an economic crash. I call it the Greater Depression. But the good news is, unlike the last one, in the last fourth turning of the cycle of crises for the world – the economy was not so diverse, so everybody went down with the economy and had to grimly go on with it for a decade until World War II kind of threw us out of it, for better or worse. Then, what we have now, though, is a world where, as I was saying earlier, there's a revolution going on in society, and it's the power of the individual as centralized banking, as centralized governments, as a new kind of fascism that has a corporate face starts to take over the world. The response to that is more and more people being whistleblowers, more and more people trying to find new technologies through this new social media to actually keep their privacy, keep their freedoms, and actually take the power of even something as simple as a transaction with another human being completely out of the centralized banking system or the currency systems that are based on nationalistic political prisms. And this is what is happening with turning. We're even probably going to abandon even the idea and the concept of gold, because what we're going to replace it with is math.
Math? Did you say math?
Mathematics. Mathematics is going in the future. This is a very Aquarian age kind of thing. Mathematics, the creation of numbers, datum dollars, is going to be the new kind of currency that that does not require a bank, does not require a Federal Reserve. It does not require me to do anything but get on my computer, make a transaction with somebody else in the world instantaneously, without borders, without limits. And this is one of the things that's coming up, and I talk about this in both books on 2015. I call it the decentralization revolution. It's going to affect how we view power grids of politics, the power grids of electricity, the power grids of everything. And because there's these new revolutionary ideas in science and technology that are going to empower the individual. For instance, you will soon have a little box in your office or in your house that will power your house. You will not need to be on the grid. The grid will be made irrelevant. There are things happening in politics where people are understanding on a local level that they have the power to overthrow laws that are old-fashioned and suppressing voters' rights. Take, for instance, the movement that's hardly talked about in the news, which is a big movement of states making legislation that makes the Electoral College, their electors that pick the president, because frankly, folks, you've never picked the president of the United States in your elections. They are picked by electors that you vote for. And if the majority of
we don't even vote for them. We don't even know who they are.
They are given, are empowered with our votes to make the decisions that are the votes that really vote in the president. So the thing that's happened since the fiasco that happened in Florida in 2000 with the voter counts is that states are starting to simply legislate that, okay, all our electors will automatically be given to the person who wins the majority of votes in the nation. So what they've done is they haven't tried to fight with a new amendment to pass through 2/3 of Congress to get the Electoral College overthrown. They say, hey, Electoral College can just last and be there as a nice museum piece, because what will happen is, and it will probably happen in the next election, you will never see a Florida recount situation again, because people power is moved by then, I predict, to have enough of the 270 electoral votes by states who simply are going to dedicate their electors to vote for the one who wins the popular vote, that there will never be a president that is elected with electoral votes, but not the popular vote, like happened with Al Gore against Bush, where Gore won 500,000 more votes in the United States than Bush, but he lost because he didn't have the electoral votes. So that's one example how people are re-empowering themselves to, and it's the same with cities, even where I live up in the Northwest here. We don't have to wait for the idiots going to Paris to get real and start cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 to 80%. There are towns and cities and boroughs and communities that are doing it on their own. And as that grows and grows, more people are going to come to see it. It's almost like people are not going to reform these stupid systems that have come to this kind of crystallization of systemic collapse. They're just going to walk away from it. If people hold on to the old economic systems, they will regionally and individually suffer the next Greater Depression. But the blessing of our times is there are alternatives to that with cryptocurrency and other forms of economic structuring that are not part of that system. And people will just buy and sell and make their money and make their businesses on those. And they're based on basically an internet Bitcoin format.
Well, and I've seen a very big movement of people wanting to become self-sufficient, self-reliant, putting in gardens in their backyards, putting in solar or other means of generating heat or electricity in their homes, and trying to utilize nature and the resources that they have at hand versus buying into, what's at the supermarket or whatever. They're trying to just take more ownership of the direction of their lives.
Yes. That's what's happening. That's the power shift that's happening. You'll begin to see much more of it accessible, and you'll notice it much more in this new year. But it's been slowly building, and it will eventually become, it's called alternative media, alternative economies, alternatives. But the truth is, it's the future mainstream. And what's going to happen is all these so-called mainstream things, they're becoming anachronism streams. And because most people still get their information through that filter, a lot of these things are not known by most people are happening. So I try to do my bit by not only predicting forecasting the trends, but also making people aware of these movements and things that are going on that their corporate-run politicians and media don't want them to know about, because it's like finding out that cigarettes make cancer. They don't want you to know about that. Global warming, fossil fuels make a cancer in our climate that could threaten the world. And so just like we eventually found out after a lot of publicity and propaganda to keep people from knowing that cigarettes were harmful for our health, CO2 and carbon emissions is equally far more harmful to our health and our future. And like what happened before, eventually the truth, through grassroots understanding, succeeds and endures. And that will happen in this situation. The question I look at is not whether we will lose it or be destroyed, but more how much pain and suffering do we need to hurl on ourselves from the consequences of our stupidity and the consequences of not making these changes. That may make the next 2 decades quite rocky and quite painful. But birth is also painful, and travails sometimes bring new life.
I'm going to change topics here. In the last couple of years, it seems like the United States has been losing its economic strength. Do you see the end of the petrodollar or American superiority around the world coming up in 2015?
It's actually, this is I call 2015 not only the year of last chances, but the year one, that 2014 was the end of the American century, which began 100 years ago with the consequences of stupid actions of the center of then the known world in 1914, which was the European imperial powers, going to war for really no great reason, a war that nobody wanted to wage. And that set in motion by 1918, in 4 short years, a situation where America emerged in its century as the next great power after the British Empire. We had to save them from the mess that they created, and suddenly we had cachet, political cachet, and influence. And so from then on, because it was born in the actions of 1914, I talked about how in my last book about predictions for 2014 that we are repeating this 1914-2014 triggering, catalyzing in the next 4 years. By 2018, I think you will clearly see, just as the European empires had been overturned and the whole world had been changed, you will see by 2018 this shift of power and economic focus and history's focus away from America and towards Eurasia, in the guise of China, and also in the guise of Russia and China and the BRIC alliance, that is India, China, Russia, South Africa, and Brazil. You're going to see NATO fade and be replaced by the Shanghai Accord. I don't have the right name of it right now, but that is an agreement that basically is not only an economic but a military alliance of those nations in Eurasia that are east-leaning. And rather than adapt to this, we have been doing things, and will go on in this year doing things that are based on a false narrative that the American century is still happening. We will try to exacerbate issue between Russia and America and Europe. which is going to cause a serious recession. The sanctions against Russia are going to blow back onto Europe. Germany is already predicting a recession in this year, and Germany is the core economically of the EU. The EU, American politicians are trying to get the EU monetary union to do their natural gas business and everything with Americans. The problem with that idea is that we are at least 11 years away from being able to actually ship any of our fossil fuels to them to replace the cheap and affordable and readily available gas that comes out of Russia. So it is. We are in the midst of a shift of history's axis in 2015. It began in 2014. It is on the move now. And this is now becoming East Asia's century. I don't think it can just be called China, because that's also an attitude of the past that's changing. It's the kind of attitude that was there in a bipolar world that was created after the New World Order was reestablished in 1945. That order is now crumbling. It is not just cracking. We're going to watch it begin to crumble in the next 4 years. And by 2018, it'll be a very different world. As different as the world changed from 1914 to 1918.
Well, okay.
So learn your Mandarin.
Well, I mean, I can eat with chopsticks. Does that count?
I love Asian food, so
I do too. I mean, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. I lived in California when the Vietnamese first started emigrating to America, and I'd go eat Vietnamese food, and people were like, well, they don't serve, I won't say, but, good stuff. You shouldn't eat there. And I'm like, hey, if it tastes good, I'm good.
Well, and what will happen with this is America is going to lose its empire just like England lost its empire, although it's going to be much faster. The U.S. dollar is going to still be there as a major currency, but it will not be the only reserve currency.
It will be so pitiful. We have become so arrogant as a country and a people to believe that we're second best. Please.
Well, and the petrodollar, to answer your question, is definitely, what was triggered by all these sanctions against Russia last year is really the beginning of the end of the petrodollar. That'll be the karmic consequence of it, because basically it's that last nudge that's finally the world is saying, you know what? We are not centered on America anymore. Since 1945, we were, because America was, for better or worse, was the last surviving center where half the gold was, where it was the only economy that was still vibrant, where the rest of the world in World War II had lost their economies, were devastated. But now the world's changed. It's become multipolar. It's become multi-ethnic, multi-politically ethnic in a way. So it's more about vive la différence rather than my way or the highway, all American. And, unfortunately, it's like what happened with the ancient regime of the French Empire before it descended into a revolution at the end of the 18th century. They just thought they were the center of the continental Europe when they were slipping. But they, like us, kind of had this idea of, we're never going to be number two. We just can't think that, even as you're becoming number three, number four. And then suddenly you find yourself with people knocking on your palace doors with pitchforks. And you go, how did we get there from here? Well, the problem with the human mind is it can handle sudden emergencies very well, but a slow developing catastrophe is always something like climate change, like when your systemic structures of your society begin to crumble over generations of time. It's very hard for people to grasp that, and they don't listen to the people who warn them of it. They often persecute them or laugh at them until it's too late. And then they look at them with respect of hindsight, and hindsight has a hind in it. It's asinine. So it's one of the reasons why I call Nostradamus a great failure as a prophet is that he's so regarded for in the hindsight of his readers for having foreseen so many things. But he should have been a better prophet to have helped teach people to have a foresight to prevent it. and he didn't.
But I think that is true with any kind of prophecy, is that it's a statement, but you don't really understand how it applies until after the fact.
I think in our times now, with the sophistication of information, there's far more chance now. For instance, most people didn't know about Nostradamus' prophecies, but I'm talking on your show. I've talked to, I once was on a show. I'm going to be on Coast to Coast later tonight. I once, in February of 2013, when the popes were changing, I sat for a few minutes and talked to 140 million Russians on Russia Channel 1. A person who is involved in prophecy, either translating them or making them, now has a global audience, now has the same internet that's there, where ideas now are much more accessible. So a person who's warning or sees trends has much more access to the rank and file of the world to make changes. So I think more than any other time in the world, people in the forecasting business can help prevent things from happening.
Okay, but that's professional talking about professional, and giving people the information that they can work with versus giving people, here's some just generic prophecy. I mean, I'm using Nostradamus specifically. Here's some generic prophecy, and you need to figure out how that applies to you. If it's getting interpreted and this is the things we need to watch out for, then it's more hands-on and tangible for people.
Well, that's what I do. In my books, I try to...
That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. I try to take these prophecies and I try to make them understandable and build a bridge. Most prophecy books, when I grew up reading them, I was thinking, these books always tell us wonderfully how terrible we are in the present. And then they always shine a golden aged light on how wonderful we'll be in the future. But there's this huge gulf between the end of the story and the beginning of the story that I've sought through my life as a writer to try to bridge, to show you step by step how you have a global society that works, step by step I'm going to set out a bunch of short books that are going to look at important things like the kind of politics. What's politics going to do in the next 1,000 years? What's economic models going to evolve into in the next 1,000 years? Step by step. And utopias can only exist if there's a bridge built to them, step by step. And it has to address the difficult birthing stages. And that's what I try to do in my work more and more now.
For this period of time, and I don't necessarily mean 2015 specifically, have you unearthed, read, whatever the correct word would be, any prophecies of Nostradamus that fits well into this time period?
Oh, yes. A lot of them deal with his astrology. We're already in the situation where we discussed earlier last year about the new Cold War, where there's these two timelines in astrology that he puts out. He actually says there's a short timeline and a long timeline for a second Cold War that is set up by the time when the great northern kings that rule the world are eagle kings, he calls them. Well, their totems are eagles. That would mean when Russia dropped being the Soviet Union and readopted the presidential flag, which has the two-headed eagle as the state flag, to our bald eagle as our totem for America, they're talking about us, and that happened in 1992. So that tells me that we're in the window of these events starting in 1992. And then the question is, where do you begin the countdown that's either 13 years long or 3 years and 7 months long? And that's kind of given to us to define, and last year I defined it as the start of the Ukraine-Crimean crisis. And the fact that you could even also say just recently when the Congress made a resolution, that resolution reads as a declaration of a new Cold War to contain Russia. That, to me, could be the time you start counting 3 years and 7 months, which would take you towards the end of the first year of the next president of the United States, probably getting into what I say in the 2015 book is a Ukrainian missile crisis, which is kind of a variation on a theme of the Cuban Missile Crisis that happened in 1962, where we suddenly set into motion and I talk about it as there's a thing called the karmic echo that I've uncovered in the patterns of the future, where lessons that aren't collectively learned by nations and humanity come back every 20, 40 to 80 years. And they come back in a reverse negative of what they were. Take, for example, America puts advisors into Vietnam. An incident happens that turns out not to have really happened, the Gulf of Tonkin, and a Democrat President Johnson gets us into a quagmire that harms the nation. 40 years later, in 2003, the karmic echo has returned with another Texan president, but he's a Republican this time, getting us into a new quagmire. It's not a jungle, it's a desert in Iraq, and it's based on weapons of mass destruction, which is the Gulf of Tonkin snafu that never happened. There weren't any. So in this way, I'm seeing a karmic echo back to the Cuban Missile Crisis happening as soon as this new year, although more likely when I look at the astrology of Nostradamus, it's happening in the summer of 2016, where we are faced with two possibilities: a crisis in Ukraine, which will be divided into an East and West Ukraine, similar to in the last Cold War to the East and West German issue, where you have Russians and NATO eyeball to eyeball across a barbed wire border. It's not on the River Elbe anymore. It's separation of the eastern provinces of Ukraine in Novi Russia with the Kiev regime in western Ukraine, which is now becoming part of NATO. Something happens, a missile's fired or some incident happens that suddenly brings us into a potential nuclear confrontation with Russia as soon as the first year of the next president of the United States, which could either be Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton, because our choices for picking the president in the next election is not going to be the choices ours. It's going to be the choices theirs. That means the forces that have created a corporate creeping coup d'etat since Citizens United was passed by the Supreme Court in 2010. This creeping coup d'etat will be completed in the presidential elections of 2016, where the choice that we have to pick from is theirs, either Hillary or Coca-Cola Bush or Pepsi Hillary Clinton. And the problem with the latter
is it really our choice? And do we really elect the president? Really?
Well, not in 2016. So what I hope will happen as the unintended consequences of these power trippers is that people are going to finally understand that the political system, like I was saying earlier about trying to fix the fiat economy, people will understand that it cannot be fixed. They just have to create an alternative. And there's not a third-party solution to this problem. There's simply, I would say, we have to abolish all parties and look at our political responsibilities from a whole new light as the responsibility of community rather than party. And communities don't exist in this gotcha polarizing. They don't survive if the construct of a community is always in a polarized, divide and conquer. We're going to have our platform, your platform. When we live in community, we have to find ways of reaching for common ground and nourishing those things that we all share and tolerating those things that we disagree with, because we have a picture of the bigger need of stability of our community. So it's a kind of politics that gets out of this got you, put you down, money corrupted system. And
we need to go.
Oh.
Yeah, they're telling me that I got 1 minute. So, John, where can they get your book? Where can they get? I mean, I know your webpage is loaded with information, so just plug away.
Yeah, just go. Or the other thing, too, is just if you want to see a whole sample of my books, easiest way is to go at Amazon.com and type in your search JOHNHOGUE, John Hogue. And then there's a beautiful page there which shows everything that I've got for sale, including printed books versions as well, if you don't want to do ebooks. And they're all down at bargain prices right now. And the top of the column will be my newest book. Just look for the big green eye. And that's the book called 10 Predictions for 2015 and the Future of Richness.
Perfect. John, you're a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. And there's the music, which means I definitely got to go. So you have a great night, okay?
You have a great night, too.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And next week, we're going to be speaking with Bernie Siegel about healing, gratitude, and love. And after that, with Neil Donald Walsh about God's message to the world. And so until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita. Until next time, remember, it's all just energy.